Hello and welcome to the Brand and Flow podcast. I'm your host and guide, Kuru Romar, and in this podcast we'll talk about how you can transform your business into a brand your customers won't be able to resist, as you will get to know how to stand out, attract the right people, and stay in their mind by creating a feeling, an experience, a strong reputation for your business. With our weekly episodes, we want to turn you into a brand leader for you to know which actions you need to take to build and grow your brand consistently and passionately. So are you ready to brand and flow to make your business grow? Let's go. Here we are, the 15th episode of the Brand and Flow podcast. Great that you tuned in. So today we'll talk about your brand personality and how you're able to define your brand personality. And before we go deeper into this topic of brand personality and why you need one, I want to ask you, how do you meet people? And how do you decide to stay in contact with people? Now, most of us, we would get to know somebody and then try to understand who they are, what they're doing, what their goals are, how they're talking, how they're acting, right? We would have all of these impressions and we would decide based on these impressions if we like to stay in contact with that person or not. Now, when we talk about branding, we need to have the same experience. We need to create the same experience. Our customers need to have the same experience. Because when we get to know somebody newly, our instinct helps us to understand if that person is a threat or is bringing value to our life, right? And your customers have the same feelings, the same thoughts in their mind when they interact with your business. They want to know, are you just stealing their time and money? Because that's not what they want, right? Their brain just wants to filter out every information that is not valuable for them. Or are you somebody that will bring value into their life? Same like you would try to not have long conversations or generally contact with people that might not fit to who you are, right? And we would look for characteristics. We would look, as we talked about before, we'd look at either if they are able to be relatable to where we are right now or if they will bring us to a goal where we're aiming to be. So this is the personality people have. And we always talk about human brands. And we'll go deeper into this topic of why we need to create human brands in another episode in more details. But I think it's clear that even if we own a business, this business needs to act like a human. Because otherwise we're not able to connect to it. We're not able to, relate to the things that this business would say if it's just an entity. There needs to be some life in it. And the life comes through you as a business owner as well as through your team and every customer that joins. The life gets spreaded, right? It becomes a powerful vibe in there, right? You're able to spread it, you're able to share and more. But in order to know what kind of personality we need to create, there's a 5-step framework that you can use. Now, when we're talking about creating a brand personality, we're talking about how we're able to relate to our customers, right? We just talked about it. So the first step of defining our brand's personality is getting to know our audience. Who's our customer? And, you can go into a previous episode where we talked about our target audience and defining whom we're trying to attract to our business. But generally, you need to go deep into who's really that person that you want to connect to, that you want to offer your products and services, and how this person is able to stay with you for the long term, how you're able to serve them, and what value you will provide them, right? And there are different tools that you can use. But in defining your brand's personality, I would definitely recommend you to define the archetypes of your customers. What kind of people are they? By the way, archetypes are a framework that we can use to define personality traits and characters that each one of us carries inside of them. We'll talk about this in another episode in more details. But once you're clear about the archetype of your target audience, you have one puzzle piece. Now you need to ask yourself, what kind of puzzle piece is the right fit for them, right? And at the end of the day, you know that defining your target audience mainly comes from what you're trying to achieve with your business. We talked about how these people are able to stay with your business for the long term. So you're already filtering your target audience. Remember the first step of defining your brand personality, defining your target audience. The second step, defining the brand archetype of your audience, of your customers. Because in there you find out what character traits you need to represent as well and what they are looking for. Because the third step of defining your brand personality would be to find out what's your brand role. So what kind of role you need to play in their life. And, we talk about this when we talk about brand strategy, methods, and processes. we're talking about the brand persona approach. And we differentiate in 4 different approaches, where you have to select one. The first approach is we are the same. In this case, you're just portraying the same personality, the same characters like your target audience, like your customer. The second approach is you can be me. In this case, we are talking to an aspirational identity or personality our customers want to aim to. The third approach is I can guide you. In this case, you're taking them from A to where they want to be, no matter where their goal is. And the fourth approach is you can be great. In this case, you're being a motivator more. You're helping them through the needs and desires that they have by being there for them, right? By motivating them, for example. And once you found out what approach you are aiming to follow, what you would do is you would define one archetype that fits to that brand role. And you would give that archetype 100%. By the way, in the previous, when you're defining your target audience, you should come up with a percentage as well. Sorry, I forgot to say that. So you should mention how much a certain archetype, so you should mention the dominant archetype that your target audience has, and then, shall we do it again? Let's do it again. So here we are the 15th episode of the Brand and Flow podcast, where we'll talk about your brand personality. We'll talk about why you need to define your brand personality, and we'll go deeper into a 5-step framework that you're able to use to define your brand personality. Now, before we go deeper into the brand personality, let's get to know why we need it. And for this, I want to ask you, if you meet somebody for the first time, how do you decide that you want to talk to that person and stay in contact with that person? You're evaluating some character traits of that person, aren't you? You're checking how they talk, how they act, what kind of topics they talk about. And you're trying to find out, and this is controlled by your instincts, you're trying to find out if that person is a threat in your life. So if that person will harm you, or if that person is a value in your life, right? And if that person is valuable, like if you feel like that person is interesting and, gives you a good feeling and gives you whatever you were aiming to look for in social connections, you would stay in contact with that person, wouldn't you? And you would try to get to know that person better and better. This is how we connect. We build these connections and relationships on shared character traits in a way, right? Now, when we're talking about brand, we're talking about building human brands. And we go deeper into this topic in another episode, but generally it's obvious why we're trying to build human brands, because we're trying to connect with humans. So if we're only an entity that feels corporate and cold, building connections can be pretty rough and tough. What we're trying to do is to create a feeling. And in order to create a feeling, we need to create a human brand. So we need to know how we talk, what we talk about, what we believe in, and all these things. And, they're defined in your brand's personality. And your brand personality is the third step of your brand strategy. Before it, you need to get clear about your brand's DNA and your positioning strategy, because your brand's personality depends on the previous steps. So you shouldn't assume something. It should be based on what you found out before and the clarity that you gained, right? But it's important that we're defining our brand personality and taking actions upon that, so we are able to create long-term relationships with our customers. Same like you would maybe hope with the connections that you are making with people, to get to know them more and more and, to check out on them, and at the end to become good friends. That's what we're doing as well with our brand personality. And, when we talk about your brand personality, there are several elements that are included in there. First of all, you would need to know what kind of personality you want to represent. And as I said, that depends as well whom you're trying to attract to your business and what kind of business strategy you're following. Because according to this, you would take certain actions and you would present yourself in a certain way that should be, well fitted to what you want to do and what you're trying to achieve with it. Other than this, for example, your brand name makes a big part of your brand personality. And your tone of voice makes a lot of your brand personality. Defining your brand personality is the basis for you to know how to visually express yourself. I mean, we buy clothes that fit to who we are, right? We try to express ourselves with it. So we need to be clear first about who we are and what do we want to represent and what kind of personality we want to create, so we are able then to go into the visual design, right? So for everyone, Brand personality has to be done before creating visual brand identities. In general, before doing brand expressions, no matter if this is verbally, written, or visually, it's important for you to know who you are, because that defines how you will, talk, act, look, and so on. And I want to say one more thing. Your entity currently might not have a life because it's simply like, transactional. We have to make sales and everything. But once you focus on your branding, once you focus on defining your brand strategy, once you are aligned with it, once your employees are aligned with it, and you're spreading the messages, this creates the life of your business. And that's why we call it human brand. This is where we create the human connections, a great reputation, and we are known and remembered, same like we would remember our friends, our family, and so on. So it's so important that you're able to define your brand's personality. Now, let's get deeper into the 5-step framework that I would recommend you when you want to define your brand's personality. So we talked about it. We want to connect with our customers. So in order to define our personality, we need to be first clear about who's our target audience, whom we're trying to attract. And when you did that step, you would go in the second step into defining their brand archetypes. Now, brand archetypes are a framework that you can use to get to know what dominant character trait your target audience has. We'll talk about brand archetypes in another episode in more details, but generally you can see it like this. Each one of us has a certain character trait that is dominant, that we're looking for. Now, for instance, if you're connecting with family members, you might be looking for love and belongingness, right? If you're connecting with partners, when it comes to business, your needs change, right? So you're expecting certain things from them, and you expect them to be more professional and goal-focused, goal-oriented, and all these things. So in this case, we're trying to find out who's our customer and what do they desire, and what is their dominant character trait that we need to fulfill, that we need to talk to, that we need to relate to, right? So when we're talking about brand archetypes, they give us 12 different character traits where we're able to choose one dominant. So you should give one of the character traits a dominant role. So one of the character traits should be dominant. If you think that there are 2 archetypes that play a role in your customer's personality and in the way they act and talk, and in the way they have desires and goals, you should focus on an archetypal mix. What we do here is we set up 100% rule, so you're not able to exceed 100%, and you would give the dominant. So, and if you believe that your target audience is represented by more than one archetype, you can use 2 as well. I wouldn't recommend you to go for 3, because at the end of the day, each of these character traits, we all carry it in us, like I told you, right? But we're trying to find out which one is the dominant one that we need to focus on. So focus on maximum 2, and you can use a 70-30 method. So the dominant one should get 70%, and the secondary archetype should get 30%. Now what you see here is that you have an influencing archetype that you need to focus on, but you have a dominant archetype that all your content, your messaging, and everything should be shaped around that archetype and what that archetype needs, right? So what your target audience is desiring, how they are thinking and how they're acting and so on, what they're missing. Now, once you're clear about that, you would move in the 3rd step into defining your brand role. Now, when we talk about your brand role, what we mean is that you need to find out, after you know now what your customers want, how you're able to serve that need, how you're able to help them, right? And in order to do so, we use brand persona approaches. Now, brand persona approaches, there are 4 approaches that you can choose from, and you should choose one. And they help you to get a direction into what you want to represent in their lives, okay? Now, the first approach is, we are the same. It simply means that you're reflecting the same personality and identity of your customers. So like most of the influencers, they're showing us their life, being relatable, and we just think, okay, they're like me, we like them, right? The second approach is, you can be like me. In this case, You're talking to the aspirational personality and aspirational identity that your customers are looking for. The third approach is I can guide you. In this case, you're taking over the role of a guide. So you're helping them to come from A to the goal they're aiming to be. And the fourth approach is you can be great. In here, you're just a moderator, right? You're giving them the vibe they're looking for. Now, so after you chose the archetypes of your customers and you found out your brand role, you need to now know which of the archetypes would be the fit for your brand role. So a single archetype fits to the brand role that you defined, and give that archetype 100%, okay? So now we know the archetype of our customers and our brand role and what archetype we need to represent. Now, the fourth step in defining your brand personality is to find the archetypal mix of your brand. So what you need to do now is find out which of the archetypes exceeds 100%, because that archetype is your dominant archetype. So as you know your brand role, that archetype would be your dominant archetype, right? And then it can be influenced by another archetype that you're able to choose from. And you should check the sum of the archetypes that you wrote. So your target audience's archetype as well as your brand role. So you should focus on which archetypes are dominant and are needed to serve your customer's archetype and what they are looking for and what they're aiming to be. So you have that one puzzle piece, which is your customer. You found out who they are and what they need in their life, what motivates them and what they fear, right? And you're trying to find the other puzzle piece that fits into it. And you know the brand approach you need to take. And in this case, you'll be clear in what you need to express and what you need to stand for. So the fifth step would be then to go deeper into the details of defining your brand's personality. So how would this person act, talk, and so on? So gain the clarity through your archetypes. And if you want me to send you over the document of the brand archetypes, connect with me on social media or via email, and I'll send it over to you. Or, you can just Google it. But you will see that each archetype defines how you need to be. Now you need to find out how you're able to build your unique brand personality that will fit to it. And the fifth and last step is simply bringing your brand to life. You need to take actions according to the personality you have defined, right? And you need to do this consistently, because our personality is as well something that we consistently express, and that's why our friends still stay our friends. And when we change, they might wonder what's going on, right? Because we need to consistently portray who we are and what we believe in, and how we talk and act and everything. And that gives us stability, and that gives the counterpart, so in this case your customers, stability to trust you. That gives you credibility, right? And that helps you to authentically represent what you want to express with your business. So it's so important for you to focus on your brand personality. And I hope that this episode helped you to gain more clarity in how you're able to define your brand's personality. If you have more questions, I'm happy to connect with you and talk about it with you. Just write me a message and we'll talk. And other than this, I'm really hoping to see you in the next episode of the Brand and Flow podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and it was helpful for you. To provide you more insights and tips, I need your feedback. So please rate or leave a review. Connect with me. And if you know a passionate entrepreneur who would benefit from this episode, share it with them so we can grow together. Can't wait to have you back in the next episode of the Brand and Flow podcast. Until then, don't forget, if you brand and flow, your business will grow.